Talk a little bit about your family, but whatever you're comfortable with.
Yes, well, my family in many ways was even more obsessed than the normal French family because my grandmother had a restaurant. She had 6 sisters who loved to cook, and they were always competing on who made the best quiche Lorraine and who made the best crumb cake and all that. And then my mother loved to cook, of course. My uncle on my father's side was a chef and had a spa and restaurant in the south of France. So as a teenager, I grew up in this environment with, of course, a huge garden with everything fresh from carrots and radishes to raspberries. We had a hazelnut tree, a walnut tree, bushes of blackberries, raspberries. We had a whole field of strawberries. And then in the south of France, when I'd visit my uncle's family, we had, he made everything fresh at the restaurant. It was amazing. And I grew up being very spoiled and not kind of knowing it, that we always had fresh food, homemade food, wonderful soups. And I was very privileged, and the same during the summer at the farmhouse that my grandmother had in Alsace. Everything was fresh, the milk, she would make butter and goat cheese and everything. And it spoils you for the rest of your life, I tell you.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Sometimes when I eat something, at a restaurant, I said, this is not fresh. And people look at me like, what? I said, no, this is not fresh. Look at this salad. This shows it's like 3 days old. Or I can tell you it's, and they're like stunned. I said, well, I grew up picking it up, so I know how it is when it's fresh, And in Provence during the summer, when I have people from all over the world coming and visiting, and eating a peach that was picked right from the tree 2 hours before is an experience that cannot be explained. It can only be tasted. It just changes the way you taste food and you look at food and you respect food, which is very, very important. In my family, I would say that. My mother, not only we wouldn't waste food, and we had never had second servings. It was, the meal was prepared, and we had what she thought was the portion we needed, and no snacks in between. But we were never deprived of a dessert or, a piece of chocolate or things like that. And we learned to drink wine with a little bit of water, as young kids. Lots of water, actually. But, all these things to make it natural so that, when you turn 16 or 18, you don't feel like you have to do it and get drunk and all that. And it became part of a natural thing that your parents have with your meal. And at a certain age, you can have a little bit you too. So all these rituals were very, very important. And, looking back as an adult, it makes me realize how, and that's why I preach a lot to young mothers. And I said, you deserve to cook for your children because, when they grow up, you don't want them to remember dinner is my mother, on a couch eating a pizza out of a box and watching television. Because even if kids are being educated at school and more they will need to, but it's not enough if they come home and they see the other extreme, because mothers are role models. And so a child doesn't know the difference. And if he sees his mother eating that way, he thinks this is what dinner is. So it sets confusion and a lot of bad habits into children. The same way, and I see, French people are much more demanding with their kids. Eating in their room while doing video games or on their PC. No, you eat at the table, and there's no television, and there's no PC, and there's no cell phone, and I think it's important, even if for the child it could be, especially the teenager, it could be a pain in the neck, but there are a few values that you need to instill so that the children can grow healthy. and pick up a few good habits.
There's a lot that gets transmitted at the table that isn't even
tremendous.
spoken, and it's internalized. And if there's no space created for it, it won't happen.
Absolutely.
I love the part about drinking water. You know, it sounds so obvious, but there's been 30-year studies on water.
Yes. And every day you read another report contradicting the other one. The fact is, I spoke to many friends, doctors in France. And, you know, it's again, each of us is unique. And, for example, I said, you know, generally speaking, you need to be hydrated. When you get up in the morning, the first things you must do is drink a glass of water. Because what happened during the night, you get dehydrated, you sweat, you lose so much. You're like a dry sponge. And think about putting some water on a sponge. What happened, right? It swells, it blooms. Same with us. So you start like that, and then during the day, you should have a glass of water every couple of hours. And of course, if you exercise or if you travel, you need to add much more. I mean, I am not in the plane, and I can't tell you that I drink another liter of extra water. I really need it. So we need to be very hydrated, very, very important for the body, especially for women with their skin and hair, and it will make a difference when your body will tell you how much water you need, you know, and it's essential. And of course, children today, unfortunately, drink too much soda, and they think, well, it's liquid, yes, but it's not the water. Or people who say to me, oh, I drink plenty of coffee or tea. And I say, well, actually, if you drink coffee or tea,
you need more water.
They have caffeine and they dehydrate, so you need even more water. You know, so they don't realize all that. So there's a lot of education to be made, and you know, to facts to explain, very simple ones, why you need to be hydrated and how important it is.
Do you know of an area in France called De Levant, outside of Paris? It's about an hour, I think it's south of Paris. De Levant.
Spell it.
I don't know how to spell it. Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Buddhist master, who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, teaches about breathing.
Oh, yeah. We
Village.
have quite a few places.
Yes.
I mean, the French are big on that. There are a couple of places around Paris, which I don't know about, but there are also quite a few places in my neck of the wood in Provence and between Provence and Lyon. And they're wonderful areas where you go, and it's, you know, in the forest or the mountain, and great, and has more and more French young people who are into it.
Learning how to breathe.
Yes.
You talk about finding this place of contentment, about being able to taste flavors. You even gave an example that most of us would, let's say, use balsamic vinegar in a salad, and yet what we think we're tasting isn't true balsamic vinegar. Talk about that.
Well, you know, balsamic vinegar, when it's the real thing, is expensive because it's aged for a long time, and so the flavor comes, it's like old wine, you know, it comes from the aging. And so it's expensive. And unfortunately, it became fast, like many things in restaurant, and like everybody using it. And they use it on everything, you know, from salad to, I mean, I can't believe the number of dishes where they put balsamic, you know, and most of it is just stuff mixed with caramel or all kinds of things. I wouldn't even want to know what's in there. But it's not vinegar, it's sugar.
Where do we buy true balsamic vinegar? Or what should we think about? Where do we find it?
Well, you have to look at the bottle. You know, it's like a label, like in France with the AOC. There's an origin, and true balsamic comes from Modena, and it will be written on the label, and it will cost a lot of money, and you will need like just a drop of it, not, you know, like what you have in restaurant. Actually, it happened to me yesterday. I ordered salmon on a brioche, and it came with some green, and it was covered with this brown stuff. And I said to the waiter, excuse me, is this balsamic? And he said, yes. And I said, well, this was not written on the dish. Is it possible to have one without. He said,